This video will be about writing introduction paragraphs as well as the body paragraphs for your research paper. Our focus will be how to create that flow in your research paper so everything logically follows the previous. So to start with, we'll talk about the essential components of your openers or introduction paragraphs. Make sure that you have a hook that grabs the reader's attention so that the reader wants to continue reading. Make sure that you include any background information, dates, definitions, etc. so that we understand what your topic is. And of course, the last sentence of your introduction needs to be your thesis statement. More information about thesis statements can be found in the module. Make sure that you do 4 things in your introduction, just in general. These are the purpose of the introduction paragraph or paragraphs. Obviously grabbing the reader's attention, making sure they want to finish reading your paper, introducing your main idea. If we're not certain what your topic is by the end of the first paragraph, there's a problem. Make sure also that you signal what direction your essay will take. This has to do with the focus of your essay, as well as understanding what specific topics we will cover. And then, of course, set the tone of your essay, whether you will be looking at something seriously, more lighthearted, somewhere in the middle. So to develop an introduction paragraph, you want to make sure that you are thinking about the different components of the introduction as well as how to put it together. This is an example using what's called the inverted triangle method, where you start with a broad idea and move to something more specific. What I'm going to show you is this paragraph in 3 stages. This would be the first stage, so least developed paragraph. What you can do is pause the video here and notice the difference between the least developed and the more developed paragraph to see what the author has added to make it more developed. And then finally, you can pause the video again and see the fully developed version of the paragraph so you can see what the student has added to make it a good introduction that leads us from a big idea to a narrow idea, and then also prepares us for what will happen in the essay. Couple more ideas for how to start your essay. You might use a narrative. This would be a story or anecdote. You can use one that is from a source, and you can also use one that you have made up hypothetically. Both are fine as long as you cite one that comes from a source. You might describe a scenario or a situation. This would be similar to an anecdote, but rather than a story, you would just create a picture of what you see. Works really well for situations as well as places. You might start with a question. Make sure that you are only asking one question, and it is a question you can answer in the essay. Also, you could consider dramatically brief statements. This would be short sentences. If you have kind of a dramatic topic, this would work well. It doesn't work for everyone, but this could be another idea for you. And then finally, a quotation. A quotation you can use in 2 ways. You can format it like you see on the screen here, where it's separated from the first paragraph and in italics. It's just something for the reader to think about. Or you can use it as the first sentence of your essay and give us some context. So you can do it in both ways. So those are some ideas. There's more ideas in your textbooks as well. Moving on to your body paragraphs, the middle section of your essay. The big point that I want to make with the middle section is that everything needs to flow. It needs to consider what was previously discussed and then also how it will move forward your point that you're making in the entire essay. You should not have any paragraph in your essay that does not obviously need to be there. So the first thing you want to consider is making sure you ask the so what question, which we have talked about before. That would be the question, why is this in here? Why is this example important? As soon as you provide an example, make sure that you explain in context how it's important. What does it provide for us? How is this point tied to your thesis? How does it tie to the point in the paragraph that you are making? What does this quote add to your discussion? What about these statistics? So anytime you include an example, a fact, a statistic, quotation, anything like that, you want to make sure that the sentence immediately after it ties it back to the point of the entire paper. We need to know, why is this in here? I'll post the video in the module as well. The other thing I want you to remember is that you're using what's called expository writing for this essay. Research papers generally use this style of writing. The primary goal is to inform the reader, so it will be mostly informative information. However, there's always a secondary goal to make a point or persuasion. And so even if you have a topic that is not argumentative, you are still going to try and persuade the reader to think about your topic in a different way, or think about your topic in a certain way. And so that's what you want to be thinking about as you write your paper. You always have a point to it, and that needs to be carried forward through your essay. Every sentence, every section needs to be in your essay for a reason, and we need to understand that reason as you explain it. So a couple of things to use as a checklist here. Make sure that your essay meets these guidelines. We want to have a sure sense of your audience. That is, you're not explaining things in too elementary of a way, because we're not kindergartners, but you are also not explaining things that we really need to know. So remember, your audience is college students. If they wouldn't know something, provide a definition. You need a well-defined thesis. That seems pretty obvious. You clear strategy for how you will organize your essay. A lot of students choose to organize from least important to most important, or least complex to most complex, or you might be ordering in chronological order depending on your topic. Strong evidence, of course, would be from your sources, making sure that every paragraph has a source in it. And then a clean narrative line would be, you think about narration for a narrative essay, telling a story. For a research essay, this means understanding where we've come from, so the previous paragraph, and where we're going, and making sure that every paragraph moves that forward and doesn't go backwards or re-explain something that's already been explained. Your conclusion, of course, needs to be strong. There will be another video about conclusions, but making sure that that wraps up your point and focuses on your persuasion. Every paragraph needs to start with what's called a bridge sentence. Don't start with a quote. Don't start with a statistic. Start with a bridge sentence. How does this new information link from the previous paragraph to this paragraph? Every sentence at the beginning of each paragraph needs to be a bridge sentence. And this is something that you can look for pretty easily and add to your essay. Make sure that your paragraphs are also focusing just on one point. If you write more than maybe 9 sentences or so in a paragraph, you might look to see if you've covered more than one point and can divide and expand. So here's some examples of bridge sentences. You are more than welcome to, again, pause the video. What these examples show you is that even without having read this article or even understanding what the topic is, you can see how this paragraph will cover a new topic, and it has also been tied to the previous topic that was covered in the previous paragraph. Another thing you can do is called signposting. That is, lead your reader through the essay by hinting what will be discussed. So if you're going to discuss 3 examples, tell us there will be 3 examples, and then number them as you go through them. Similarly, if you're going to order your points in order of importance or in order of strength, make sure that you are telling us this in the transitions that you use. Use those transition words. You should have transitions all over your paper. My favorite are however, also, and additionally. I tend to suggest that a lot for students just because those are good transitions to help us understand how information in a sentence will relate to the previous sentence. You can also use headers in this paper. I will show you some examples. There will be a handout in the module as well, but you can use headers if you want to. A couple of things that you have to remember: you want to use bold font and numbers. Make sure that they're Roman numerals and that they're numbered in order. Do not use one before the introduction. It should be pretty obvious that we're reading an introduction. And make sure that you still transition between each section. That's something that sometimes students forget to include. And then also make sure that you do not have one before every single paragraph in your essay. Otherwise, your essay looks like an outline with paragraphs in it. You don't want that. So just an example, this would be, you have to imagine that there's multiple paragraphs involved in each section. The other thing that you can do to help kind of make your paper a little bit longer is include one block quotation. A block quotation is any quote that's longer than 4 typed lines. You have to block it away from the rest of the text by using MLA format. The whole thing is double tabbed in. It is 4 typed lines on the screen before you block it, and you can only have one in your essay. And I want to reiterate that only one block quotation can be used in your research paper. This is an example. You can pause the screen if you want to. There's another example in your textbook that I will have in the module as well. So that concludes our discussion of how to write the introduction and middle paragraphs. I went through that fairly quickly, but I will put the actual PowerPoint in the module as well, so you can look back at these slides if you want to. Otherwise, that concludes our discussion.